Hey squad, it's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, if you're watching the news, you recently saw that Israel, the Knesset, their grand governing assembly, has just passed 64 to 0 because the opposition party walked out. Just passed a monumental legislation reform in which the reasonableness of the government cannot be questioned by the Supreme Court. This will basically render the Israeli Supreme Court a rubber stamp on anything of real significance when dealing with the government of Israel. One of the fascinating tales in history that I really enjoy learning about, if you hear me, you probably hear me talk about it enough, is the Teutonic Order, or the Knights of the Teutonic Order. Ironically, the Teutonic Order was actually started in Israel. Uh, Europeans had made a beachhead during the Crusades, the early on in the Crusades in the Levant, modern day Western Asia, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Cyprus. And some German investors came in and created a hospital to care for the injured and the ailing and the sick that were there fighting the crusades against the Muslims. Well, this hospital grew up into a network, and over time, there's this Teutonic Order of medical facilities became basically militarized. They militarized this, and it became a religious military order, the Teutonic Knights. Eventually, the Muslims won out at the end of the Crusades, and the Europeans were kicked out of the Levant. And the Teutonic Knights found themselves kind of a mercenary group, defending Christendom per se. And of course, this was enough lucrative dealings behind the scene, but this is the general narrative. So they get invited to Hungary. And while in Hungary, because these guys were already very well established militarily, they've been fighting top-notch Asian militaries. They're up to with facilities of technology, advanced warfare. They set up shop, and Hungary has some problems with some marauders and raiders and nomads from the Eurasian steppes called the Cumans. And they use the Teutonic Order as a buffer. And the Teutonic Order, using their intelligence, set up shop. Not only did they defend the borders of a young Hungary, but they started to expand. They expanded to a point that it concerned the elites and nobles of Hungary, and they were asked to leave Hungary. Moving on to the next place, they were invited again by the Poles. After causing so much concern because of their relative ambition in Hungary, the Poles figure they can use the muscle of the Teutonic Order to deal with the pagan people along the Baltic shores. The Teutonic Knights moved there, and once again, the same thing happened. They were successful in their military efforts, and then they started to be ambitious and expand. Eventually, one of the groups that descended from this Teutonic Order named themselves after the people they had conquered. They called themselves Prussia. Today, we don't call it Prussia. Today, we call it Germany. You see, the Teutonic Order became so powerful that it was able to consolidate the entire central area of Europe by the Germanic states. They brought Germany under one nation. There became a nationalist fervor that they bought in and was able to realize as Prussians. From that point on, all the way up to now, Germany has gave the world its fair share, including today with Germany being one of the largest economies in Europe today, larger than Italy, larger than France, on par, possibly larger than, and definitely larger than UK, excuse me, on par with UK, slightly larger than UK. This was a people that had a religious fervor about themselves, mixed with nationalism and great skill. And they were able to do unfathomable things, like insane things, I'll say it that way. Conversely, we look at Israel. Not saying it's the same, I just see some interesting parallels. Israel is founded on an idea of Zionists, that the Jewish people are entitled to a homeland. And the master of this, what I would say the grand master of understanding psyche in any country will be your politicians, because especially the democratically elected ones, because you have to give people a reason to elect you. So I think one of the great politicians, or the greatest in Israeli history based off the numbers, is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has his fair share of legal woes, but that doesn't stop him from being very successful politically. In fact, Benjamin Netanyahu is the longest serving prime minister in Israel history. But it had come to no shock that when his prior coalition started to break up, he was only left with zealots, expansionists, extreme nationalists that could back his conservative party. Because these were the parties that were left over. These were the parties that had been put in place. These were the parties that made up the Knesset. And Benjamin Netanyahu, being a pragmatic politician that he is, he said, I can work with this. And in doing so, a lot of deals were made. I think it's necessary to say that Israel wouldn't be where it was today if it wasn't for its technological advantage, its great intelligence, and its aggressiveness. And now Israel can seem to have an extreme far right wing government. How do you want to characterize that? But there has been many protests because a lot of people on the streets of Israel are very concerned about the agenda of the current governing party. It's made up of religious nationalists, religious Zionists. I don't know if you saw the protest, but a lot of the photos you'll see Israeli flag next to LGBTQ flags. Just because there's a lot of people in the current government that really embrace and are proponents of the traditional family. And with this new legislation, with the limitation placed on the judiciary, as long as these people stay in power, is it a check on that? Because these are also going to be the people that oversee health. These are also going to be people that oversees education. These are people that believe in annexations. Some of the members of the current governing party actually believe in the annexation of West Bank. So they're proponents of more indoctrination than education. Traitors should be kicked out, etc. Two-state solution, get that out of here. No, not in their lifetimes. And you can't be, and as I said, the tree is bearing the fruit that this tree produces. This is the people that was available for the alliance for Benjamin Netanyahu. Do I think he is extreme as the rest of his coalition? No, I think he's very pragmatic. I don't think you can be that successful over that period of time without knowing how to make things happen. But that being said, he has promises he has to make. People such as Ben Gvir, I'm not saying that he's going to be the next prime minister, but I am saying he's possibly the common nose under the tent. He's the slippery slope. He's the future Israeli politician that make that motto. When you look at Israel's position, I think you better understand the psyche of its people. Saudi Arabia and Iran rapprochement, trying to get Syria back into the Arab League. Iraq is going to be booming. It's going to have a major demographic boom, and it's going to be on top of its resources. This isn't going to be Iraq of sanctioned Saddam Hussein, but this is going to be a globally accepted Iraq. You're going to have, right next door, you're going to have China coming in. China trying to make friends with everybody because China is going to need the energy resources. You have Hamas and their rockets within the Palestinian areas. You have Hezbollah in Lebanon. So there is no shortage of conflict that can be had for Israel in this region. And of course, the people feel it. But only a portion of the people fight this urge for this national tendency. Because, as I said, the Likud party since 2000 has been in power one way or another as a coalition 18 years. 18 out of those 23 years, Likud has been empowered. This is a reflection of the democratic people of Israel. And it's a sign. It's a sign of not only of who Israelis see themselves being, electing these people, but maybe an indication of who they believe they need to be in the future. I don't think it's a coincidence that you have this fervor, you have this nationalist pride, this that the government pretty much neuters your judicial process. And ironically, it's making Israel look more and more like its neighbors that it's supposed to be in stark contrast to. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, references the will to power. And this will of power is kind of a concept of realizing your optimal self, desire to become stronger, self-actualization, striving to be more, self-governance, and to be influential into this world, and to do things and to become something. I think we forget how this applies to all organic things, including government, that's made up of groupings and parties, which are made up of families, which are made up of people. And these people are a reflection of the culture. This is why I always say people get the government they deserve, because they produce these people that eventually rise to these positions. The politician is a reflection on a society. There's going to be challenging time, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see what's next for this party. How far are they going to push before it's going to get pushed back? Or does it go right back to it? As long as Israel's being technologically superior, have an edge on their intelligence services, and remain aggressive, remain on the offense, that's going to be their strategy for success. So I'm watching just like you're watching. I love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Talk to you soon. Take care. Till next time. Bantu up.